let's reduce this to maybe about this much. And this one, let's reduce to maybe about this much. And this one here. Right. Let's turn that off. Yep. So this one here. And let's just reduce it to maybe, okay, so that's 0. Maybe this much. And now let's create one more roto. And let's just say, do it here. And let's go to our first frame. And roughly match it up. And now, if here we increase the feather, maybe let's, instead of feathering, let's just do a little bit of manual adjustment like so. And let's match it up in frame 1 just so the animation stays consistent. Okay, so this will blend it in a tiny bit. And I think for this ship particularly, we could soften the edge because it's sort of standing out silhouetted against this bright background kind of a little bit sharply. So maybe let's just create a dot here, and what we're going to do is create a node called light wrap, and let's plug this in as the background and this as the foreground. And in here we can introduce light wrap, which is created using the pixels from the image in the background and applying them and blurring them over the edges of the alpha of our A channel. And so let's maybe drop the intensity a little bit, and maybe let's make it a little bit more diffuse. And now let's click to generate wrap only. So this allows us to just have the effect by itself. And we can reapply it by creating a merge screen node and plugging it in as A. And let's have a look. So now we have a little bit of this light wrap. We go a bit earlier. Yeah, so it just helps transition this hard edge a little bit. And what we could do is, because we don't necessarily want this effect on the other airships, let's have a look. What we could do is just create a roto node and a reformat, which we'll set to 4000 by 2000, and plug it in as the mask. And let's just select this spaceship because this is the one where I want this effect primarily. Okay, so now we have the light wrap around the spaceship. Now for our foreground waterfall, let's just select view this. And what we're going to want is to create a little bit of light interaction between this jet engine and this waterfall itself. And the way we can do that is just by grabbing this. And actually first let's adjust this a little bit because I think I noticed a little bit of a flaw with it. I felt like maybe if we go here, the light from these is a little bit too widely spread on these background spaceships. I don't want anywhere near this size of a glare. So what I can do is here, after my shuffle, take my original blur that I created and also create a new one. And this one I will reduce down maybe 30. And now I'll create a roto node. And here I'll roto this out and set the output to RGBA and color to 0 and invert so we only keep this, and this gets blurred a lot. And then if we copy this roto and paste it here in the settings we will turn off the invert, and now all we have to do is merge these together and we have our mix of these two different scales of the glow now. So let's also use it here. Okay. It's still a little bit bright. Maybe let's just turn it down a little bit. Okay. And now if we go back to our waterfall and go back here, let's take this result that we've just created and connect it to a dot, and we'll just drag it over here and here create a grade node and plug this in. And what we're going to do is multiply this by a bit. So we're getting this brightening spot around where the engine is. And let's turn the gain up and let's just make it primarily more red or sort of yellowish. And I think we could blur this even more. So the engine is lighting up a slightly wider area. Okay, so now I think this adds a little bit. And so that fits the light in nicely, but what we could also do is distort that a little bit by using the movement of our spaceship with the iDistort node. And let's just make this a little bit bigger. And we're gonna create a shuffle copy node. And we're gonna plug in our waterfalls into 1, and into 2 we are going to plug in our airships. I will just take everything that exists here for the airships. And in the shuffle copy, I want to put some values into the forward channel here. And let's just go from these to the forward UV. So now, if I create an iDistort, and let's have a look. Oh, whoops, let's just plug in our forward as the UV channel. And let's plug this in here. And let's have a look. If I increase the UV scale, okay, we can clearly see that this is being distorted by our airship, but I don't want this kind of an effect exactly. I think the way we could fix this a little bit is by increasing the contrast here. And so let's add some color correction layers. And actually, contrast is the wrong word because we're kind of going for the opposite, but I guess by saying that I just mean sort of a stronger effect within the distortion. And so let's put this up. And also, yeah, maybe here in a color correct, let's reduce it a little bit more. Okay. So now that's a bit much. And let's put in a blur node here, because we don't want this distortion to be this sharp. So maybe let's put the blur up to 20 or 30. And let's just go in here and reduce our effect a little bit. Maybe if I put the height values up. Let's try minus actually. Let's create a quick roto and a reformat. And here add it as the mask. And let's just view this so we can see the spaceship better. And let's just create a mask around this top portion. And we only want to distort there. So let's here maybe add a bit of feather. And let's have a look now. I think that can be a good rough base. And I think next let's create another shuffle copy. And here we're going to create a noise. In the noise, let's reduce the size down to maybe 5. And we'll put a key in on the Z at 0. And then on the last frame, we'll change it to 2. So we're getting some movement. And let's go to transform and let's skew it somewhat. And rotate a bit. Okay. So now let's plug this in here. And actually, let's just copy this, just so we don't have to redo everything. Okay. And let's create an iDistort. Oh, and whoops, before this noise, or after it rather, let's create a reformat. Change it to our format. And let's have a look. Alright, so now we're getting this Ripley pattern. I think maybe we want it in the other direction, so let's do minus 30, so we get splashes going up, maybe. And I think this is currently a little bit too large, so let's just add a tile node here. And let's change the number of rows and columns. Maybe more columns. Okay, so like that's a very nice subtle effect we're getting. And let's plug in our mask as well. And lastly, what I'm going to do is create a grade node here. And let me just quickly unpremult and premult before and after. And in the grade, I'm just gonna like put the grain up to 5 maybe. And now if we create a keyer and let's just clean this up a little bit. Let's key out sort of the shadows here. and increase the contrast of our selection. Okay, and let's merge multiply our mask that is roto with our mask that is the keyer, and plug this in as a mask into the grid. Let's have a look. Let's add a shuffle. Okay, so now we're also getting some what looks like brighter splashes where the contact is occurring between the spaceship and the water. So this was previously, and now we're just getting a little bit of an interaction. It doesn't have to be much, but just a little bit to sell the shot. And now let's plug this in here. And let's have a look. And whoops, we've instantly got a problem where we're getting splashes when the spaceship hasn't arrived yet. So let's have a look at this. And I think what we'll want to do here is multiply this roto, which extends far beyond the airship and thus causes this effect to appear where we don't want it. So we're going to take this mask and we're going to multiply it by, let's find it here. No, where is it? Yeah, this layer. So I don't mind that it's a little bit blurred. I think that'll help the effect a little bit actually. So let's create a merge multiply and plug that in there, and another one for this mask and also plug that in there. Okay, actually this I want to be going here, and so now let's have a look. Okay, so there's still a little bit of an effect here. So yeah, let's just put this here as well. And it's a little bit messy, but we can clean this up later. And okay, there's no effect until the spaceship comes into view. And let me just disable this maybe. And then we are getting the distortion. So that's quite handy. Let's go back here. And we're nearly done. Let's maybe have a look at reducing the background glare a little bit. So if we go all the way here. And let's have a look. So this is a little bit overblown. And if we work our way backwards, so let's click 1 on this so we can always go back to it. And let's just go to the nodes before and see how overblown this was. So I think much less, but maybe we could fix the problem somewhere up above a little bit. So let's go to up here. And here there's a lot less. Let's see, okay, maybe if we start all the way from the top. So currently, no glare whatsoever. Let's go a couple of layers up. And we can see that here we're getting quite a bit of glare. So especially in the background is where I want to get rid of it. So what I could do is I could just make a quick copy of depth and bring it up here. And then I will just shuffle the alpha into the red. And add a clamp. And here also create a grid. And we're just going to lower the gamma and multiply just to isolate this background area. And let's plug this as a mask into the clamp. So the clamp, let's have a look. Let's lower it to maybe about this much. So quite a small amount, but still didn't cut out that much information. And let's keep going. I think here again maybe we could reduce the brightness of these a little bit. So yeah, we have all this. Let's take these and again let's just make a quick little copy of this depth. Paste this here. And we'll take the grid as well. And add this as a mask as well. Plug it in as A. Oh no, sorry, actually we want to do this more as maybe a grade. I think that would be better. And plug it in as a mask for that, and in the grade, let's select RGBA. And if I view this, let's lower the gain. So you can see it lowers on the background primarily. Let's have a look at maybe changing some of these values and seeing how that goes. Okay, let's stick with what we have. Actually, we want this to be RGBA. That's what. Yeah, so that's more like it. So now we can just control with grade the amount of reflective light our background is receiving. And if we view the comp at this stage, and let's just have a look here. Okay, let's grade this down. And we can see that this helps quite a bit with like reducing these extreme glares that we were getting. So maybe let's reduce about this much. And let's go and have a look at the comp at the end of it. So we're still getting some burning out in the background. So I think what we could do is go into our color correct here. And maybe for the highlights, let's just reduce this down to 1. And let's drop the gain just a little bit. So if we drop it by 0.1, that might already be too much. Let's drop it down to 0.95. And let's compare. Maybe even let's go as far as, where is it? 0.97. Okay, so I think that's a little bit better. So lastly, let's add a little bit of motion blur. There's not much movement at all in my shot, so I'm not really worried about it, but I'll add just a little bit to have some kind of effect that would make it a little bit less computer generated and a little bit more realistic. Let's just create a simple motion blur node. And it takes a little while to compute, especially if your script is quite large. But it's worth it just for that little effect at the end. It really kind of makes the image not look stop motion, and you know, if there's no motion blur, it kind of looks stop motion. It looks a little bit fake, and I guess it looks like a miniature model almost. So adding a little bit of motion blur kind of makes it slightly less unbelievable. Alright, awesome. So now that we have this, let's render out our follow-up version, which will be the final version of this actual shot. At least I think for me. If you keep iterating and making more versions and versioning it up, then you can go on forever, and there's always more and more to do and better ways to improve things, but this is the point at which I decided to cut this off and call it final. So let's have a look. So here we are at the finish line, and this is our final render of our moving shot. So it's been quite a long journey, and for anyone who actually stuck through with me for this entire tutorial, thank you very much. I hope that you were able to pick up some new knowledge and some new skills, or at least some new ideas for how you could develop your own projects. Above all, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a good time creating your own artworks with some of these techniques. I can't wait to see them. So, goodbye, and until next time. Cheers, guys.